Welcome to this flight of the Retail Pilot. I'm your host, Ken Pilot, former CEO and current brand advisor, retail tech investor, and board member. I'm thrilled to share with you the insights from some of retail's leaders and legends, as well as my perspective on retail today. This podcast is sponsored by the following. Predict Spring is a global point-of-sale platform live in 22 countries. The platform includes mobile POS, endless aisle, fulfillment, inventory management, and clienteling, creating a true omni experience for customers and associates. Predict Spring powers Suit Supply, Converse, Lovesac, Decium, Janie and Jack, and Bouclair. Breakfast helps brands like HelloFresh, Perfume.com, and QVC increase revenue across Meta and TikTok by creating hundreds of user-generated content video ads. The Breakfast Creator Network, with over 5,000 strong, produces original content that is authentic to each platform and built to drive performance, all done in as little as 3 weeks. Check out breakfast.io. That's BRKFST.io. Welcome to this week's KPOV. For week ending September 22nd, here are the headlines. Amazon is hosting a second Prime Day event on October 10th and 11th, getting a head start on what will be a very promotional holiday season, which will conclude a very promotional fall season. H&M will expand return fees for online orders. The fast fashion retailer has begun charging customers in the US, UK, and most of Europe, unless you are part of their free loyalty program, in which case you don't have to pay for your returns. The customer return fee strategy is definitely gaining traction among retailers, such as what we've seen with Zara. In international news, Marquee Brands has joined forces with the Apparel Group to expand its footprint in the Middle East and India, increasing their appeal for their brands, including BCBG, Ben Sherman, Bruno Magli, Martha Stewart, and Sur La Table by 1.5 billion people. And good news on the tech valuation front. Klaviyo shares jumped 9% in their IPO and held on to the majority of its gains through Friday's close, proving that a prudent valuation coupled with driving revenue and profit is the formula for tech success. And now on to my previously recorded interview with Nate Checketts. Great to be here today with Nate Checketts, the co-founder and CEO of Rhone, a men's performance lifestyle brand founded in 2014. Prior to Rhone, Nate worked for and consulted with some of the biggest technology and entertainment properties in the world, including Cisco, the NFL, Legends, FanVision, and Sport Radar. Nate is also an avid entrepreneur who founded and launched 4 companies before the age of 30, including Rhone and Manja Technologies, whose patents were later acquired by the San Francisco 49ers. In 2020, Nate was selected by the Sports Business Journal to their 2020 list of 40 leaders under 40. In addition to Rhone, Nate also serves as chairman of the board to Beyond Type 1, a nonprofit dedicated to the community of those with type 1 diabetes. Nate, great to have you on this flight of the Retail Pilot. Although we've been connected for a long time on social media, I think this is the first time we've actually been together, met in person. It's great. You're even better looking in person. So it's good to be here. And it's true, as you said, I had John Maris on recently, so you know how low the bar can go.
Yeah, there we go.
Just so everyone knows, Nate and John are very good friends. They were at college.
Yeah, we sat really close to each other in our undergrad at BYU, and we spoke a lot during the pandemic, those early days. What he's built at Solo has been incredible. He's been a great friend, mentor to me. When we opened our Dallas store, he was at the store opening, came to our workout event there. So yeah, cannot say enough good things about John.
Super cool. Me as well. Well, it's great to have you, and looking forward to jumping in and understanding more about your journey and the business today. Why don't you start by just sharing with us your journey? I know you've launched the business with your brother, Ben. And is he still an employee?
Yeah, Ben is my brother and our creative director and really my best friend in the world. But I also launched it with my brother-in-law, Karis, who is married to our older sister. And Karis is still on our board and super active. But yeah, the business very much started as like a family discussion. So there's 6 kids in my family. And as you can imagine, we're always debating or arguing over something. especially when the families get together. And really this idea started because Karis was like, I see guys wearing Lululemon. No guy should ever wear a brand called Lululemon. And so that's how the discussion started. Because I was like, well, if the clothes are well made and comfortable, why would you not wear it? And then he's like, look at the logo, look at the packaging. And so that kind of put the bug in the ear, so to speak. Met the guys at Bonobos, met the guys at Warby Parker. Everything was moving to direct to consumer. And it felt like there was a huge void in the men's space specifically. I was working at the NFL at the time. And the kind of funny story that happened is while I was there at the NFL, Budweiser was throwing this big event, and they decided to send a box of clothing for the event to the employees of the NFL. So the women got Lululemon stuff and the men got Nike stuff. And I remember being like, this doesn't make any sense. Nike makes women's product and Lululemon makes men's product. And the guy next to me, who's again a very close friend of mine, goes, oh, do you also buy your underwear at Victoria's Secret? And so this idea just kind of kept permeating, and I felt like there was an opportunity to build a brand men were excited, proud to wear, that used the highest quality materials and really could help blend between this work-life silhouette that had started to merge, like 10, 20 years ago, certainly 50 years ago. Guys bucketed what they could wear based on the end use occasions. Like, these are the clothes I'm allowed to wear to work. This is what I'm allowed to wear when I hang out with my friends, when I'm hanging out at home on the sideline of my kids' soccer game. And so many of those categories have morphed into a single category. People have called it athleisure. We now are hearing work leisure. What we really believe is making highly versatile, high performance clothing that guys can wear in multiple settings.
And now you really came at this from everything but a fashion, but a retail, but an e-commerce background. You were in entertainment, you were in finance. So is that where Ben comes in to bring some fashion, some savvy? This is a little bit sounds like the way you've described it, the Faraday boys. I mean, Alex and Mike, the brother story, other family members were involved, and here you are. But it sounds like Ben was like the perfect complement to you.
Yeah, I mean, we're really very much yin and yang. We certainly have a lot in common, but we didn't have formal training or background. Unlike Faraday, where Mike was a designer at Ralph Lauren and Alex was at Cerberus. I had a business entrepreneurial background. Ben was always naturally interested in clothing product. He was definitely the most interested in clothing in our family. And it just, a lot of people warn you not to work with family members. For us, it's been the greatest thing. It just, at the end of your life, you get a certain amount of hours each day with people that you care about. When you work with them, that, 5X's, 10X's, and he's really talented and he's really good at what he does. So it's a double win for me.
It's funny. I had an uncle that told me not to work with the family. He said, there's no greater oxymoron than a good family business. I ignored him, and I worked with my cousin at ABC Carpet at home, and he had a good point. And I'm going to leave that there for purposes of family. So, just to step back for a second to provide some context. I mean, Rhone's been around now for over 10 years.
Almost 10.
Just share with us some idea around size, scope, and the business model, direct to consumer, wholesale, et cetera, just so there's a really good understanding of where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we started, we really started with this idea that retail was dead. That's what everybody told us. Direct to consumer is the future. And so we started all e-com.
Retail in terms of being store retail.
Yes, physical brick and mortar retail.
Got it.
And that DTC was kind of the answer. And I've said in a number of places that I really believe it. DTC founders were kind of the worst, right? We act like we invented retail and we act like we made it so much better. And in reality, from a unit economic standpoint, from many different points, I think we made retail worse, right? But we made it more convenient, and we certainly are meeting the shopper where they are. But what became really clear to me in the early days, and thanks to advice from people who had been in the space for a long time, was that we needed to be an omnichannel business. We needed to be where the customer was, and we couldn't expect that we could get every potential customer to our website. So we had to meet them where they were. And that meant opening our own retail stores. That meant going into select, really high-end wholesale accounts and building relationships with up-and-coming wholesale accounts. So I worked my way in to get in front of the team at Equinox, and they said, okay, we'll try your product in 10 stores, consignment only. We worked as hard as we could to make sure those 10 stores were selling our products really, really well.
I think that may have been the first time I came in contact physically with Rhone was an Equinox. Yeah, it was. I'm a good friend with Harvey.
Yep.
And I always thought he was doing a good job in terms of merchandising and finding like kind of cooler brands that were ahead of the curve. So that worked out well. Yeah.
And it became clear, in many ways, I think Equinox deserves a lot of credit for the spread of Lululemon, particularly in the Northeast, because they helped get it into their shops early on. So I knew that when I was at the NFL, we used to talk about being kingmakers. And it's a bit arrogant, but it's true. Like if the NFL decides to work with a certain media company, everybody knows. So what are those hub and spoke models that you can find where you do one sale, but you're really reaching a wider berth of people? And Equinox for me was that. And Harvey has been an incredible friend and mentor to me when he didn't have to, but he took a meeting, liked the product, put it in the store. And then we started outselling Lululemon in the stores. And so they decided to bring it in, roll it out to all their shops. Then we started outselling Nike, and we became their number one men's partner. And so that was like, that put us on the map in a lot of people's minds. And it wasn't that people were always going into Equinox to shop. It was usually, I forgot my gym shorts. What do you have? Oh, this is cool. And they're like, these are the best shorts I've ever had. And that's how we got introduction to a lot of these types of customers. But then when they went to go back and shop, oftentimes they'd come straight to our website.
So you had a great partnership really starting your wholesale portion of the business. You were online, and now you've also rolled out your own stores. How many Rhone stores are there today?
We've got 15 stores today. We're certainly opening more. Retail's tricky. It's a very different business, but I have really fallen in love with it. I think it's incredibly exciting. All of our stores are profitable. When we started opening stores, we were hearing from all these DTC brands where it was like, well, even if your store's not making money, you can kind of apply this marketing halo mix to it so you can justify opening more stores. And I never bought into that.
It's like bullshit. Bullshit.
Exactly. So we were determined from day one to not overbuild, not overspend, not get pulled into a negotiation that we didn't believe in. And I'm really, really proud. All of our stores are profitable and doing great. And it's put us in a position to go and open a lot more stores. But we're being thoughtful. We're not just opening stores to open stores.
If you were to look out now, let's say 36 months from today,
sure,
and you were to take the total pie of sales, e-commerce, company-operated stores, and wholesale, what might that look like?
In terms of mix?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll continue to be predominantly a direct-to-consumer business between our e-com and stores. That's going to be 75-80% of the business consistently. But we do think select wholesale partners, the right wholesale partners, are important because they're advisors and people who will say you should never go into X store. But the people who are going into that store, they love that store. Now, we're not going to go into a store where they don't take care of their customers, or they don't merchandise it well, or they don't display it well. And we have proactively pulled out of several accounts because we said, if you're not going to represent the brand the way we want to be represented, then we don't want to be in your store. Oddly, that's made us more desirable with a number of these accounts. But yeah, there are so many great accounts, and there's a lot of great specialty accounts. I always use, my family's been going to Sun Valley, Idaho since I was a kid. My grandparents did their honeymoon there. And there's this awesome shop there called Pete Lane's. Everybody knows it. And there's Brass Ranch, and there's these little cool specialty stores. But if you go to Sun Valley, I don't care if you shop at, the highest form of luxury, you're going to go into Brass Ranch, you're going to go into Pete Lane's, you're going to go shop those stores. So we want to be in those stores because especially when people are on vacation or they're traveling, they treat discovery different, and especially men. And getting in a men's closet is really hard. But once you're there, man alive, stickiest customer in the world. So yeah, we like the right wholesale.
I think wholesale is a lot like merchandising. It's the right curation
Yes.
that's going to win the day. And sometimes you take a markdown on product or a partner that's not working and find the next one. But I think it's smart. I mean, when we talked to John Maris, he was very vocal about the profitability of wholesale, relative to e-commerce, just in terms of where the costs are going.
That's something he and I have had a lot of conversations.
He loves that. Now, you got to talk him into retail stores, but that's a whole other story.
We've had that conversation too.
What about international? Where is that? Is it too soon? I mean, 10 stores, 12 stores, 15 stores, not a lot in this country.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's probably an appetite, or you're hearing there's an appetite, or have you been approached to take Rhone abroad?
Yeah, we've certainly been approached to do more international. We're in a couple of really great international wholesale accounts we're really proud to be in. But there's such a big domestic opportunity. So we try not to take our eye off the ball, but we're doing more and more in international. Our chief growth officer is British, so she's pushing us to do more there. And there's a lot of great markets that I think the brand would do really well. I always remind people, Rhone is an international name. It's an international brand by virtue of the fact that people know what it is much more in Europe than oftentimes they do in the US.
It's interesting. I wanted to go back to just picking partners. On Cloud has done an amazing job with the brand, blowing the brand up. I mean, it has a market cap today that rivals Ralph Lauren. It's greater than Under Armour, which is kind of mind-blowing, but it is. And I don't think they've done a great job picking their wholesale partners because I see their product almost everywhere. And I think some partners I don't think are worthy of having it, whereas others might be.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to be very careful, and it sounds like you're really going about it the right way, certainly looking at the weighting of where wholesale will be in the future, because controlling your destiny, controlling the way product looks, and most importantly, controlling the brand experience, you trade on that. And if it isn't a good experience, I almost forgot how I got Rhone, but I know I didn't enjoy it. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
That's so true. And, we can all think of countless examples where the people in the setting drive how you feel about the end product. In fact, I had actually written a business plan before starting Rhone that was set to kind of tackle this specific issue, because if you get on an airline flight and you have a great flight attendant who takes good care of you, who's super thoughtful, who makes sure, if you're traveling with kids, they make sure that the kids are taken care of, or you travel with a flight attendant who's rude, it's like, stop doing that, or is mean to the kids or anything like that, the way you feel about the airline is impacted. Now, it was just a person, it was one employee that had that, but ultimately, it changes the way you feel about it. If you go to a Six Flags or you go to a Walt Disney World, you're going to have a different experience with an employee that is paid an identical wage. But that comes down to training, intention, and it's something we talk a lot about, is how do we build that, not just on our retail team or our customer service team, but how do we build that as a company culture that our customers matter. They matter a lot to us. They're at the center of every decision we make. We have to take great care.
So to that end, how often are you getting out to the stores, touching the people that work here to try to build that culture? Because right now, with the hybrid work experience, culture is tough at the home office. Not everybody shows up.
Yeah.
People all are not in the same place at the same time. Yeah. Fortunately, stores don't have a choice. They can't work from home. Yeah. But are you out in stores? Are you spreading the love?
Yeah. I mean, I love going to our stores, but it's never enough. Like, we're never there enough. And in fact, we've got a mandate on how often our executive team needs to be in stores. It's really important that our entire team is spending time in stores. But and every time we go, got this insight. But it was funny because I was talking to the team at JP Morgan, and all of the banks have gone back to work 5 days a week. They're in person. And I said, how have they delivered that message? And they said, well, Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, says, if our branch employees have to be in 5 days a week, why do you think you shouldn't have to be in? And it's a pretty valuable point. I think about that every single Saturday that I'm not in a store somewhere. I'm like, we have people working.
And it's the busiest day.
Yes. Saturdays are crazy.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think you ever get the balance right, but it's something that we care about.
Yeah, the real estate space is a lot like that too. A lot of friends of mine who are in the business, they would say, listen, guy who owns 25 residential buildings, who say, our super's at work every day. Imagine if he wanted to work from home. Our people are in there. Our doormen are in there. Our service people in there. You're coming to the office. So, they've been at the office every day. Yeah. So similar to banking, it's moved to full time again. Right. And it feels like our industry, you'll probably never get Friday back. Don't know. Feel that's kind of Thursday is the new Friday. But I think it is more challenging for leaders to create culture, to train, to mentor, to build the DNA of the company when people are really all over the place.
I think the challenge is that it's very hard to take something back once somebody has it, right? And I remember coming into retail and everybody's like, is Rhone going to do summer Fridays? And I was like, what on earth is summer Fridays? They're like, well, in the retail world, everybody kind of leaves at 1:00 during summer. And I was like, that sounds great, but I've never even heard of that. We do summer Fridays and people love it and they're always excited about it. But it's like, that's become an industry expectation. It's a level of, we deserve this because this is what our industry does. And I think work from home has become a lot like that in a lot of ways.
Let's pivot a bit. I want to get back to the growth story, the future. It's a menswear brand. You're hitting a lot of sections within men's, whether it's true workout or work and workout or athleisure, as you call it. But what about expanding the opportunity? Women's seems like it's the big, where are you with women's? You look at what Vuori has done, a competitor, or Lululemon, even getting into the men's space from the women's space. How do you continue to scale this business? What are the product opportunities for Rhone to grow?
I mean, there's a number of different expansion opportunities that we're currently in active pursuing, but ultimately it comes down to just delivering great product and putting customer back at the center of every product development that we do. We don't want to expand so fast that we're not delivering really, really great product. And I mean, I remember growing up, we would go to my favorite burger joint, this cheeseburger joint is called Hyers in Salt Lake City. It's where my parents are both from. And we'd go and visit and I was like, how come there's not as many Hyers as there are McDonald's or Wendy's? And I remember my dad saying, well, as soon as you expand anything, the quality tends to go down. And so that always stuck with me. But there obviously are brands who have figured out how to scale, how to keep quality. And so for us, if we are going to go into a new category, we're going to do it right. And we're going to make sure that the quality is first and foremost. We actually did do a women's capsule collection back in 2019, sold out. And we still, every single day I will get an email or a social post or somebody sending me something like, when are you bringing women's back? And the answer is, when we can do it really well and beat the competition and have a differentiated product, then we're gonna do it.
I love that. Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsors. Bluecore's software solution turns anonymous online shoppers into known customers and repeat customers. Bluecore enables retailers to personalize and optimize their email, SMS, and site marketing campaigns by delivering targeted and relevant messages based on where every customer is in their journey. Bluecore replaces annoying high-volume messaging with high-value messaging. Customers include Alo Yoga, Neiman Marcus, and Gap. We talked a little bit about size of company. You picked a number of digits that you would be willing to quote. So just to share, to give a sense of scale, because it's not a small company.
Yeah, we still consider ourselves a small company, a growth company. We kind of hit that 9-figure mark, and it's a big milestone for the company to achieve. But we feel like we're just getting started. There's really been the first decade of any business. It can take 50 years to build that kind of a business. But for us, there are companies that have grown much faster than us, and there are companies that have grown slower. For us, we've been really consistent. We've just grown every single year, sometimes triple digits, sometimes double digits. But we're now growing at a pace that is really exciting, even with this scale, that I think makes me believe we can be a 10-figure business.
Looking at your investor base and the amount of money you've raised, who are some of your investors and what do you look for in an investor?
Yeah. We're pretty fortunate. We have some really cool, exciting investors, most of which we don't talk about publicly. We have some professional
Could
athletes.
This be considered privately? No.
We have some professional athletes that are investors. We have over 5 sports team owners that are now on our cap table. And what we look for in investors is to find people who are going to be helpful, additive. I think about it across 3 different categories. Do they have a name that we can use, right? So that we can just tell people, oh, it's really cool. Yeah. Does this person have a network? Can they introduce us to others that are, going to be helpful, additive? And do they have a mind that they can offer in terms of answering questions? When you get the trifecta of those 3, that's a great investor. And I've been fortunate to invest in probably 50 different companies now as an angel investor. And that's kind of how I use my own analysis. Like, can I offer, generally my name, nobody's really ever cared about, but as Rhone scales, it's been more helpful. But network, I built a network of people that I really trust. I always try and be active. And you never want an investor who's put like $10,000, $20,000 in, who's calling you all the time and asking you what the latest sales figures are. You want somebody who's going to say, how can I help? How can I add value? And we've been really fortunate. We have amazing investors.
Super smart, super strategic investors, strategic money. Sounds like people that have really helped you not only with money, but also just advice and being mentors.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced during COVID and even some of the challenges that you face today, whether it's around supply chain, retail pricing, staffing. What are the biggest hurdles or obstacles facing Rhone?
Now or during COVID?
Take us back to COVID, because I think that there were a number of things that happened and maybe some head fakes or false starts that, especially for this space, like the home space that was created during the pandemic.
I mean, it's such a weird time. It's even hard to reflect on. But, I think the hardest thing for me was that we were not only managing business crisis, but we were also managing just the human crisis at the same time. And, people were really afraid. They were afraid for themselves. They were afraid for family members. But in addition to that, they were also just on edge about every social, political issue that was coming up. And so it felt like every single month we were reacting to a new crisis. Oh, we're about to go back to work. No, we're not going back to work. And that collective feeling after a year, I was really burned out. I mean, I remember being like, I can't do this anymore. Founder burnout, people just don't talk about it enough. It is a real thing. And I thankfully hadn't really felt it until that moment. And I was like, oh, this is what this means. I am full on depressed. I don't want to work. I don't want to do what I love. And I was just so burned out by trying to make everybody happy, everybody in the company, all the investors happy. And even though the business was seeing strong results, it just felt hollow and empty relative to this, again, enormous crisis that globally we were facing. And so I remember kind of reflecting on it, sitting and deciding, okay, if I'm going to continue in this, a couple of things have to change. And part of what we needed to change was we needed to grow up a little bit as an organization. And so we ended up bringing in 3 really talented executives that have transformed the business. And that's been a game changer for us as a company. It also allowed me to focus on doing the things that I'm probably best at versus trying to do in part the things that I was trying to do, manage systems and processes that I just wasn't qualified for. And, at the time, every single executive on my team, every single leader was in the biggest position they had ever been in. I was leading the largest apparel company I had ever run. Our marketing manager was running the biggest ad marketing budget. And so by bringing in people who had been there for the journey, from 100 to 500 to 1 billion, that allowed us to say, okay, we've got people who know how to do this. They've got a playbook. And it's a tricky process to go through because not everybody who has more experience is going to really fit in well at a small growing company. So we've been very intentional about how we've hired, interviewed, et cetera. And it's really been transformative for us.
You mentioned something about going through all the challenges the pandemic presented. I know that you're very involved and support different causes out there, specifically focused on mental health.
Yep.
Did that grow out of the pandemic and just what you learned? And now you're a leader in that space.
Yeah, well, it's actually been something that's been part of the brand from the very beginning. As we started, it was really clear to me, even though there was a big white space in the men's kind of premium apparel, that the world didn't need another clothing company, right? We don't need more stuff. We don't need more brands to choose from. So if we were going to do it, we had to do it differently. And I have some people who have been very close to me who have struggled mightily with mental health. And I've now lost multiple friends to suicide. And I had been pointing to a number of articles as I was kind of considering this about what the state of men's mental health specifically. And the stats have even just gotten worse since the pandemic. Men are almost 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. We're less likely to seek professional help when dealing with anxiety and depression. If we do seek out therapy, we're less likely to repeat with therapists. And in addition to, most of the mental health solutions and treatments that have come out have been more oriented towards women because they're more likely to engage in that market. So the solutions that are actually more helpful to men, on a general basis, men don't need the same things as women need, right? And so what we found is for us to engage in mental health, we need to actually engage men to move physically, and it opens them up. So we do these mind and muscle events all over the country at every store. We start with a 25-minute bodyweight workout circuit, get them sweating, and then we have a group therapy session. Now, if we were to just go and say, hey, you interesting person, come to our store. We're going to sit down with 20 other guys and we're going to talk about how you feel. Nobody would come. But these events are always filled. We have the most incredible people that come. People end up talking about bouts of depression. People end up opening up about when they've struggled with suicidal thoughts. People talk about struggles in their marriage or in their relationship or their work-life balance or, how they're dealing with being a father. It is the most incredible thing. And everybody leaves kind of coming up to us and they're like, how can we be a part of this? How can we, do more? And what my long-term goal is to help these communities thrive. And whether or not these people buy Rhone, ultimately, I don't care. But this is the impact that we want to have. And clothing is essentially a vehicle to help us get there.
That's great. I mean, it's nice to do something outside the realm of what you do that makes a difference in others' lives, whether they're employees or friends of employees, because I think what you said is absolutely true. Guys are just less likely to share what's going on in their life with someone else, just how we're wired.
It's statistically proven, research backed, and it's a huge problem. Like right now, if you look at the data, if we don't do something about this, the world is in trouble. And it's certainly not just men. Mental health impacts women as well. But we believe that as a brand, we're uniquely positioned to focus on this because every active brand before us has talked about, you're an athlete, you can run faster, you can jump higher, you can lift more weights, you can stretch your yoga position farther. And in reality, that physical health matters. But if it's imbalanced with your mental fitness and here's the thing that drives me the most crazy. When people talk about mental health, nobody talks about the fact that everybody needs it. Sometimes we're just like, oh, you know who needs that? My friend really needs it. All of us need to focus on our mental fitness, our mental health. It's as much as taking care of the way we eat, the way we move our body. It's an essential component to living.
And what do you do to take care of yourself physically? You seem like you're pretty fit. You seem like you're working out, testing the product.
Yeah, always doing product testing. I kind of am strange where I need a challenge to keep me motivated. So last year was running a sub 4-hour marathon, which I trained for, worked hard. I actually ran it in our button down dress shirt. And this year I ended up injuring my ankle. I was training for a triathlon. But since I got injured, I started just lifting weights more. So I feel like I'm training like I did in high school, it's different, but I enjoy it. For me, the modality matters less than just having an hour a day to focus on that, moving my body, and it helps my mental fitness too.
You focusing on pickleball or padel? I mean, John's a big pickleball guy. It's the fastest growing sport in the United States.
It's funny. My parents have had a basketball in their backyard forever, since I was a kid. And this winter, they decided to convert it into a pickleball court. So we started playing. My kids love it. parents play.
Do the neighbors love it?
They haven't complained yet, but
it's a little noisy.
Yeah, it's a little noisy, but I think pickle's here to stay. I mean, it's so easy for most people to play, and the hardest thing is learning how to keep score. But yeah, and by the way, like we hear all the time, your product is perfect for pickle. So yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Cool. Tell us a little bit more about technology. You are a pretty tech-oriented guy. You've got a little bit of that geek in you like I have. Talk about what tech you're using today that's making a difference. Then let's talk about what tech you're excited to use to make a difference going forward. And you can name names. Feel free. It's free advertising for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, we've from the very beginning believed that we're not a technology company. I remember when we were starting, there were a couple of retail companies out there in the market being like, we're not a clothing company, we're a technology company. And I just thought that was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're a product company. We need to make best in class product. But tech enablement is really, really powerful. And for a long time, I think retail was slow to adopt some of these really cool technology services. But now a lot of tech is cutting its teeth in retail. So, from our advertising platforms that we work with to our retail technology, I showed you right before, it's in beta phase, but I'll give a shout out to Justin, this new technology called MIME, M-I-I-M, where they're using optical tracking software to track what's happening in retail stores.
Super cool. It's Google Analytics for stores. Yeah. So you can see where your employees, your customers are, and really get a good sense of the physical movement within a store.
Yeah, and match it back to what are people looking at? What's the conversion? If they go into the dressing room, how are they converting? The kind of stats that you get on your e-com site, like for physical retail, it's like how many people came in, how many people bought. That's like about as much data as you get before, and then you rely on qualitative data from your store teams to kind of fill in the gap. So this is where I think it's going, is kind of trying to automate some of those insights and then figure out, do we need to shift our commuter product up front? Do we need to, move our seasonal stuff here? Like what's happening? Are people shopping sale or not shopping sale? So yeah, I think that's really cool. And we tell our team, every single person on our team is responsible for data. Like data matters to every team member, whether you're in product development or you're in accounting, you need to be focused on data and insights because ultimately that's what makes us better. So we use Looker in generating a lot of reports. We are always looking at different dashboards and tools, trying to figure out what's having an impact. But yeah, I definitely geek out on this stuff. I find it so fascinating.
Where are you with AI? Everybody's talking about it. It's been around for a while, but now there are other newer platforms that are coming out. What's in your AI Rolodex that you're excited about or looking to use?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're spending time on it, ad platforms and ad tech, and we're looking at it in CX enablement. But it's crazy to me what ChatGPT has done for AI from an accessibility standpoint because
it's direct to consumer.
Yeah, that's exactly what it did. It did. So I actually sat on the board of a company that went public called Veritone, which was a cognitive media platform, which is another way of saying that they built AI models that would also construct AI models. That was in 2016, I think I got off that board. So the company's been around for a long time. But now you have ChatGPT and all of a sudden my parents are AI experts and everybody knows what it is. And so I think just getting it on the minds of people and how to integrate it is going to be fascinating. We're kind of trying to challenge our team and say, where can't we use this?
Right. Are you using it in customer service?
Customer service is an easy one, and it's not meant to replace our customer service people, but it's meant to enable and empower them. So there are tools that you can actually ingest all of your customer service feedback into a platform, and it will then take that and suggest saying, hey, because not every customer is the same. Like the customer's always right, but not every customer should be created equal or treated equally. If we have somebody and their past history, they've spent $2,000 with us, and then we've got a customer who's bought 3 things and returned 3 things, those customers aren't necessarily, you might not make the same quote unquote exception with them. But what an AI model can do is saying, based on the last 2 years of history, this is what your policy says. This is what the exception you would likely make for this customer is. And this is a recommended response. Then the CX agent can use their decision to kind of say, based on this is how we're going to interact. We're going to personalize it. We're going to figure out how to, make it special. But yeah, I think that'll make us faster, more efficient.
Last tech question. You just signed up with a new CDP customer data provider.
Yep.
A lot of people would talk about CDP. It was kind of the buzz at the lead conference.
Yep.
Do you mind sharing who the provider is? I think it's public anyway.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. Our chief growth officer has been a big component of this.
And just to explain, the goal of CDP for those who aren't as tech-centric as you are.
Yeah, to put it, I think, in as much layman's terms as I can, it's really to give a 360-degree view of the customer and to have a centralized platform for your customer data. It's taking data from multiple platforms and putting it in one place. So if I say, what kind of a customer is Ken Pilot? I know everything I can about you to make better decisions on how to develop product for you, on how to treat you with customer service, on how to, sell to you when you come to our website, to make sure that we're showing you products that we have in your size that you historically purchased. It's a central repository of customer information.
So let's talk about the last topic, which is marketing. We walked through your design area. You're working on fall of 2024. How many drops a year do you do?
Well, we've got 4, big seasons. And then within those seasons, we've got many, many drops. And, sometimes those drops might be new colors and hero products. And sometimes they might be new seasonal colors. And sometimes they're just new products that we're taking a flyer on. But we've got an incredible innovation and product development team. We really pride ourselves on being at the bleeding edge of innovation. And we're at a perfect size to do it, because what we find is that most technical fabric suppliers want to come to a brand like us first, because we know that the big guys watch what we do. And if they show the big companies of the world their innovation, they'll say, oh, this is really cool. We're going to put it in development for 3 years out from now. We say that's going in, the next possible season they can. And so we become kind of a proof point. And there's so many examples of innovation that we brought to the market first. And then, it takes the bigger players 2 to 3 years to catch up.
I think one of the things that I read was that your shirts, typically product goes through a 20 wash test,
yep.
But your shirts have the ability to keep the odor out for up to 100 washes?
And beyond, yeah. So most product is treated with kind of an antifungal, antibacterial treatment, because that's all. The odor comes from bacteria that is basically dead skin cells. Not to overly geek out about this, but this was I couldn't understand why activewear smells so bad.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But what this product is, it's a topical based treatment that's effectively similar to a pesticide, by the way. And it kills off this bacteria or fungus causing the smell and odor. But every time you wash that garment, there's less and less of that topical treatment on it. So what we did is we pioneered a solution with a really cool company called Gold Fusion. Gold Fusion is effectively embedded into the fabric of the garment. It's gold and silver nanoparticles. And that becomes, we don't use the word permanent, but it's as close to permanent and anti-odor solution as you can get.
And if you were to advise your customers, I believe it's really important to not put the product in the dryer. Or is it okay to put it in the dryer?
It's totally fine to put it in the dryer. If you want the fabric integrity to last longer, then yeah, in general, for all textiles, dry, high heat is not great for fabric. It's not great for hair. It's not great for most things, but it's super efficient, and I dry all my clothes. So,
all right, I heard it here.
Yeah, but that won't impact the odor protection of the product. So after 100 washes, it's still 98% effective against bacteria. Most products, after 20 washes, you're at less than 50% efficacy,
wow.
Which is wild.
How do you market this? What are you using for marketing? It's gotten a lot more expensive. It's far more tricky than it was pre the iOS change. What's working for Rhone with marketing? Where are you spending your money?
Yeah, we're still doing the big typical spend buckets, with Meta and Google and others, but we're shifting more and more of our spend to telling brand and product stories. I think there's been a shift in, not only have costs gone significantly, it's created a barrier just through that of new brands starting. I think it's much harder to start a brand today than it was 10 years ago. Not because it's harder to make product, not because it's harder to manage supply chain, but it's harder to reach and build a customer base than it was before. So I think marketers now need to start thinking more like the madmen of yesterday, where it's like, what are the cool stories that we're trying to tell? How do we tell those big stories? Because that actually makes your performance marketing much more efficient if you can come up with great video collateral, great content. But it's a challenge. I mean, we are always trying to come up with great ideas. And what drives me crazy is when our competitors use words like, this is super soft, super high quality, and we know it's mediocre, right? We pride ourselves on really, really high quality products. But ultimately, unless the customer touches the two, they won't know the difference.
And to that end, you've done a good job controlling retail. There's been some retail creep, as with pretty much everybody, certainly since the pandemic, but you haven't allowed the cost of materials to take any quality away from your product.
Absolutely not. I mean, if we felt like that was going to happen, we just raised the price of our product, which we had to do on a couple of occasions. But one thing we know about our customers, they are much less price sensitive than they are quality sensitive. If we change the quality of a product, our customers let us know like that. If we change the price for our products, we barely hear it, which is, we're lucky. Not every company, not every brand has that kind of a customer.
Nate, one of the marketing things we could do is love to offer the listeners a way to get into the product if they're not already wearing it. I'm sure they probably are. This isn't just for me, by the way. I'm going to ask for a bigger discount, but can we offer our listeners a special coupon code?
Yeah, we could do something for the pilot community, 30 days. 20% off discount for first-time purchasers.
Awesome. He's been kind enough to offer a 20% discount over the next 30 days on your Rhone purchase. Just enter the code PILOT20. Let's go to the last part of the conversation, rapid fire. You ready?
I hope so. Let's go.
All right. Favorite sport?
Football.
Favorite team?
Giants.
Best place for a family vacation?
Oh, I would say Turks and Caicos.
If you could be the CEO of another company, which company would it be?
I thought about this but it would be Walt Disney. I am maybe not so closet Disney geek. I love Disney movies. I love Walt Disney World. I'm not one of those parents that hates it. My kids love it. My wife worked at Disney World as a Disney princess. So yeah, that would be my pick.
Favorite streamed show?
Well, I mean, I'll give a recent one. I just watched The Night Agent, which I thought was okay, but it was entertaining. Some nice breaking. Yeah.
That was fun. I watched that. It's an older show.
Is it? Well,
I think so.
I don't really watch that much TV other than sports.
Who would you most like to meet?
My dad was a big Winston Churchill fan, and I've read a lot about his life. I find him such a fascinating figure. I think in the afterlife, if you will, meeting Winston Churchill would be a dream come true.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was a big World War II guy when I was in school. I had to write my thesis on appeasement. So Neville Chamberlain prior to Winston Churchill coming on board. But I love that whole transition. I lived in London for a while, but man, I'm fascinated by World War II.
Totally. And if you did you go to the war room?
I did. I had to use primary sources to write so I was looking at letters from Chamberlain to Hitler and Hitler to Chamberlain. They were under glass, but it was intense.
Yeah. I love that stuff. So I would say somebody from that World War II era is just incredible leaders who saved modern society as we know it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to land this flight of the Retail Pilot. Nate Checketts, thank you so much for joining me today. This is your host, Ken Pilot, landing the plane for this episode of the Retail Pilot, Leaders and Legends. Hope you enjoyed the flight. If so, please follow us on your favorite podcast app.